So today I've got not so much of a deck profile. There is going to be a deck profile in there, but pretty much going to be talking about my experience learning the game Yu-Gi-Oh! So just for some background information, obviously been a fan of the anime and used to play back in school when I was much younger. And back when I played, the only type of extra deck monsters that existed at the time were fusions. So about maybe a year or so ago, I picked up Duel Links on a mobile phone, had a lot of fun with it, and I thought to myself, well, you know, what is the actual card game like nowadays? So went on YouTube, started watching like a lot of the well-known Yu-Gi tubers out there. Cali Effect and DZ, if those are some of my favorites. Simo, House of Champs, Team Sam, obviously, if you can recognize this mat. And I've kind of been collecting the cards, learning what the decks are, but not necessarily how they work. And while I have kind of messed around online with pendulums and I know Rose Dragons are one that I like playing as well, casually with a friend online. I decided to make an effort to try going to locals a bit more often, and the deck that I'm using for that is Salamangreat. Reason being that it is a budget deck, it is in the meta, and from what other people have told me and from what I've gathered, it's a fairly straightforward deck, and it's pretty good for learning interactions and making like decision making, you know, what you should negate and things like that. So even though I like things like pendulums, I don't feel confident playing them until I can get this deck down. So this is what I've been playing recently. This past weekend it has been filled with a lot of games. Went to locals on Friday night. Saturday, me and a couple of friends went out of town to a small nearby town for a PPG invite event there. We then went back into town, played locals that night, and then we also went back to that small town another day to partake in one of their smaller local events for a box. And actually one of the buddies that I went with, he ended up getting second place during the PPG event. So he won a pretty cool cloth mat with the Ghost Girls on it, and he also got an invite as well. So that's pretty cool. You know, shout outs and congratulations to him. He was playing Orcus Sky Strikers. He did make a video of his deck profile. I can go ahead and link that in here and also put it on the description so you can check it out. So I'm gonna go into what I played during the weekend, and then also some changes I made, and if I can, I'll recount some of the games that I had, my thought process in those games, and changes I made, things I learned, stuff like that. So just move the extra deck to the side for now. So starting with the main deck, with your 3 ofs, 3 Flame Buffalo, 3 Foxy, 3 Spinny. For the 2, I'm running 2 Jaguars. I was running a Jaguar and a Fowl, and Fowl's nice, but when Jaguar gets banished, it really sucks. So decided to just put 2, and I've been liking it, because even if you draw into it, you still have 1 in the deck that you can use. 2 Sea Archivers has a pretty good effect. You can use it to go into Mirage Stalio, so pretty good card. For the 1 ofs, 1 Gazelle, obviously, 1 Falco, and 1 Lady Debug. Lady Debug it's weird. Like, it's a really good plus card. It does suck if it gets ashed, but later on there were a few games where I sided out Lady Debug. Like, I just didn't have it in the deck, and everything was still fine. So I don't feel it's a necessity, but it's nice to have. Going into the hand traps, 3 Ash Blossoms, 3 Skullmeisters, 2 DD Crow, and then also 3 Infinite and Permanence. I mean, obviously, pretty self-explanatory with those. I think one problem right now, though, is probably too many hand traps, because there were a lot of times that I had pretty rough hands and wasn't really able to do much. There was one game, it was a casual game. I was playing against somebody who was running Orcus Dangers, and it was kind of hilarious because he had to end the board sitting on Phoenix because I was just DD Crowing, Call By, and Skullmeistering the Harp Horrors and the Nightmares, stuff like that. So that was kind of funny. Going into the spells and traps, 3 Signet Mining, of course. I mean, it's really good to, get your stuff out if you have a pretty rough hand. 3 Called by the Graves. 2 Will of the Salamangreat. It's pretty nice to have. There were a lot of games where I was really glad to have this because it helps you recover. Of course, 1 Salamangreat Sanctuary, 1 Circle, and then 1 Foolish Burial. I don't know, Foolish Burial is kind of nice to have, just to kind of dump something into the grave. And then, of course, 1 Rage and 1 Roar. Obviously, you're going to be running it in the deck, of course. And just kind of move those to the side for now. And then go into the extra deck. 3 Banelinks, of course. 3 Sunlight Wolves. 2 Heat Leos. The 1 Mirage Stalio. 1 IP Masquerena. Hita. Nightmare Phoenix. Apollosa. Avermax. And Dweller. I think that's pretty standard for the Salamangreat deck. So, I think I've seen some people run like 2 Mirage Stalios without Abyss, or maybe with it. And I forgot to turn the audio off on my computer to record this, so I'm getting notifications on Discord. So, some changes that I made was, I didn't even get to the side deck yet. Let me bring that out. So for the side deck, I had 3 Shared Ride. Sadly, it never came up for me when I sided it in. 3 Nibiru's, same every time I sided in, rarely ever came up. Twin Twisters, I would get it, but had really rough times using it. Lancia, that came up maybe once, and that was in the casual game that I had against that Orcus Danger player. And then 3 Pankratops, which sometimes came up. So either I'm just really bad at side decking, or it's just rough playing with the odds. But that was my side deck for now. For the changes that I did make, I ended up pulling the 3 Called Bys. Just because sometimes it didn't come up and I would just side them out, or I already had Skullmeister and really didn't need it, and so I'd swapped those out for a 3rd Will of the Salamangreat, as well as 2 Pot of Desires, and it came out fine. Like, the few instances where Desires did come up, it was pretty handy. I already had the grave loaded, so I really didn't risk losing any of my combo pieces. If there was something I lost, it was maybe Falco, and it wasn't a major hit, so I think the change is fine. The 3rd Will of the Salamangreat, I'm not fully certain how I feel on that. I feel like 2 is fine. 3, I kind of feel like maybe that's too much, but it is a nice card to have, because when it comes up and it's needed, it's pretty nice. There were a few games where I was just kind of, telling myself, gee, I really wish I had a Will out right now. As for some of the matches that I remember, there was one at the locals. It was against a fairy deck. That one was super grindy. It pretty much got to a point where I just had to get out Avermax, and it was just a beat stick that was just standing there, and he had the field out where you take no battle damage, so he just kept deciding to swing and swing and swing even though he couldn't get it out. So it was a little frustrating because it kind of felt like he might have been just stalling for time. But at the end of it, I don't think he was, because he was complaining about it being a really long first game. So I think if any, it was probably on him. It did end up in a draw, because in the second duel, it got called to time, and he was able to use one card to deal some burn damage on me. Or, I think he got over... Actually, no, I don't think it was burn. I think he was able to summon something that went over Sunlight Wolf, and then I just used Balinks to protect it. So he dealt some damage, and it went to time, so it went into a draw. But, yeah, there were a lot of times I was just kind of like, man, I really wish he would just kind of scoop right now, because yeah, it was getting to a point where he had nothing in his hand and he just kept crashing everything into Avermax, and then I would just crash into his stuff, and just it was just really repetitive and grindy. Later that night, went up against one of the guys that I went to the PPG event with. He was playing True Draco. I really don't know how to play against that deck, so he beat me. And it was also rough too, because he would play Monarch's Eruption, as well as There Can Be Only One, which is just really rough, and it sucks when that happens. There were some times though where I would forget a lot of what my effects could do, or I would pick the wrong targets, because I think there was one instance where I was able to destroy something on his back row, but I opted to go for There Can Be Only One instead of the True Monarch's Erupt, and I really should have gone for that one, because, I could have just, linked away into something else, or tried to get Foxy out, or, so that was a mistake on my part. Later that night, I went up against an Ultrageist player. That one was pretty rough too, because I don't really know how to play against that. He pretty much just suggested just side in Twin Twisters and then go from there. Try to get Foxy out, things like that. But it was pretty rough. I think I probably just need to study the matchup for that one more. And then I think that was all I can remember from that night. Then at the... Oh yeah, except one of them was a bye because somebody left. At the PPG, first round was against Pendulum Zephyra. And that, I kind of just bricked really hard during my games. There wasn't too much that I could do. And there was one round where I had a pretty good hand, but I had to play through his 4 or 5 negate board. He already had Jackal King out with like 4 counters. He had Dawn Dragster as well as Vortex Dragon out on the field. So it was just rough getting past that. I also lost the die roll a lot, so that definitely didn't help either. After that one, I went up against somebody playing Prank Kids. That was pretty interesting. I had absolutely no idea how the Prank Kids deck works. One problem that I had in that match, and I'm kind of kicking myself for it because I really should have taken advantage of the fact that there were judges there. I should have just called for ruling, because when he would use the Prank Kids as material for like a fusion or whatever summons they have an effect when they go into the grave. But the way it was worded, I wasn't certain if it technically activates in the grave for Skullmeister's effect to pop off. I think later I went on Discord and was asking around, and some people were like, yeah, you can just Skullmeister. It probably would be best to call by instead, which I did do in later games, but in that first one I had Skullmeister in my hand. I didn't have called by, so that really kind of hurt me. Again, I should have just asked the judge for ruling clarification, but I didn't, so take that as you will. Always try to use the judges when they're there. But yeah, he beat me on that one. Second duel was able to, I know I was able to get Avermax out. I remember that. I was able to play around that one too. Oh, right, another thing too was that in the first one, he started off by getting Abyss Dweller out, and that really hurt because I couldn't do anything. So that was really rough. But later on, I was able to get Avermax in the second duel. There was something... No. I think I ended up winning that one. So we did go into a game 3. Now, if there was one thing that I remember from the second game, is that he used... I want to say it was the fusion, the rocket. It's like a Raigeki. And I had Sunlight Wolf out, but I didn't use Balinks to protect it. And one of my buddies kind of was like, you know, he was watching over, and after the game was like, why didn't you use Balinks? And that was a huge problem that I had throughout the whole weekend, and still do, is I kind of forget Balinks is in the grave at times and can give protection. So that's one thing that I need to keep in mind while playing. It did win to game 3. That one got called to time, and we weren't able to deal any damage to each other, so that whole game ended in a draw. After that, I had a bye, and then the last match for that game, it was against someone playing Heroes. That game was interesting. Unfortunately, the other player didn't really seem to be very aware of how my deck worked, and he didn't know how Avermax worked because I was able to summon Avermax out. He had Vision Hero Trinity out with 7,500 attack, and then decided to go into battle phase and crash into Avermax. So I had to tell him, alright, well, I'm going to activate the effect. It gains 7,500, you know, peace out. And he, I have to say, his reaction was funny. Just because he was genuinely surprised with it. And, you know, that's what happens when you make a mistake. You know, you just learn from it and move on, but you're gonna have those, oh shit, you're just kicking yourself kind of moments. So I was able to win that one. After that, we went back into town, played for our locals, and I'm trying to see if I remember how that went. First game, if I recall correctly, was against the Cyber Dragon deck. I have absolutely no idea how Cyber Dragon works. All I know is that by the time the first game was done, I learned that the thing that I want to Ash is probably going to be the core. So I kept that in mind for the second one, but he was still able to do his stuff. So that was rough. So I lost that one. After that, I played against someone playing Sub-Terrors. That one, I remember the first game, I was stopping Hidden City from popping off. And he did tell me, like, yeah, you're going to want to make sure that doesn't resolve. But I still lost because he just overpowered me and I had a really rough hand. The second game was really frustrating for me, because also in the first game he Nibiru'd me. So in the second game, I had a fairly decent hand. I remember I had Sunlight Wolf out, I had Mirage Stalio, I think I had the usual Sunlight Wolf, Stalio, and Jack Jaguar, the usual combo as you're going through it. But I decided that instead of going into Avermax, or IP into Avermax on the following turn, I decided to go into Apollosa instead, because I know that Apollosa can prevent... Okay, I remember. I don't think it was Jack Jaguar. I had something out, because I did not use Stalio's effect. It still had 2 material on it. I think I used Foxy and Gazelle, and then used Spinny from the grave to then bring itself out, and I was going to use those for Apollousa. But I decided to bring out Apollousa. Another thing that was rough was I didn't have any back row or hand traps to help. So it was just Apollousa by herself. And yeah, the main reason I went for it was because I feared the Nibiru. I know he has it, so I'll just try to prevent it. Nibiru really hurts this deck. So the moment I passed turn, the guy kind of started going, okay, well, I'm just going to beat you this turn. I understand your mindset, but I don't know why you went into Apollousa. You should have just... Essentially saying, just go with the game plan. You know, like, if you get Nibiru'd, you get Nibiru'd. I only have 2, so it's whatever. And I felt really frustrated with myself because it really made me question my decision-making. The way I see it, I didn't have Rage or Roar with me at the time, so even if I had ended with Sunlight Wolf, I didn't have anything to really protect it with. You know, if he gets stuff if he gets stuff out, I can't Roar it, I can't Rage it. And I knew he had Nibiru, so I went with Apollousa. So really got gaslit, so it was pretty frustrating. Got some feedback on Discord though, and some people were kind of telling me, like, you know, you went with your instinct, you played what felt right to you, you just gotta learn from that. You got Nibiru, that's probably an appropriate response that you're gonna want to counter it. So, then after that, let's see. After that, I had to play against a little kid. I did win. I went easy. It was kind of, I don't know, it was cute. He was playing a Heroes deck, but we're talking about like Jaden GX, like he summoned Elemental Hero Wildheart, was using some spells to buff its attack, but had Avramax out, so it is what it is. I did let him pop my back row though. I didn't really negate anything, so but got the win there. Kind of hope he doesn't get too discouraged. You don't really see, at least from what I've gathered from my locals, you don't really see too many kids playing these card games. So, I don't know. Hopefully he plays at school and will continue to play, because your card game always needs more people and it needs an active scene. After that, went up against a Fluffles player. That one was fun. Even though I lost, it was cool seeing that deck go, because I really like the concept of Fluffles. I like the way the archetype looks. It just looks pretty cute, and it's definitely a deck that I've wanted to try out myself. Which I bought the Fluffle core, so I have a deck that I'm gonna try, and probably just for casual games. I don't think I'll play at any locals with it. We'll see how the Master Rule update goes. That might be fun. Then that was it. I lost that, so that was it for the locals there. Then we went back to New Braunfels. That's a small town that we played at. It was a place called Game Hoss. Probably should have mentioned that earlier, but shout outs to Game Hoss for hosting the events there. So with that, that's when I made the changes to the deck and ran the 2 Desires and the 3rd Will of the Salamangreat. First round, that was against, it was the same guy that was playing the Heroes deck at the PPG, except this time he was running Endymion Pendulum, and he got me in the first game because I just had a pretty rough hand. So I really wasn't able to do anything there. Second game, I was able to win that one. What was funny was that I sided in Twin Twisters, and I had it set, but one of the first spells that he put out was, he was able to get, I forgot what he got out. I think he was able to get Servant of Endymion out. Maybe I should have played Twin Twisters right there. But after he got a Spellcaster out on the board... Oh wait, no, he opened with Chronograph, that's what it was. He was able to get some Spellcasters out, and then he played village of the spellcasters. So that sucked. I couldn't Twin Twisters after that. And then he... so when he saw that I was running Avramax, he summoned an Xyz monster. Or was that in the first game? No, that was in the third, actually. Yeah, that was the third game. Still in the second game, he had spellcasters out, so I couldn't really do anything. Because I couldn't Silent Mine, I couldn't Will, or anything. But then the next turn, he kind of fucked himself over because he ended the board on Electromite, just Electromite. And he realized what he did wrong, and, you know, it's always good to realize your own mistakes. And so I was like, oh man, that sucks, man. But we played that out, beat him. Then I think in the third game he got out it was a weird Xyz monster. It was a rank 3. It was like this weird space octopus thing that apparently if you attack, he can detach a material and he gets control of the monster and can attack directly. But I ended up using Mirage Stalio to bounce it, so that was kind of funny. So won that one. After that, it was I don't even really know how to explain it. He was running Dangers, as well as, I think he was running some Dark World, but he was running Arcana Force the World. So I lose the dice roll, he goes first, and he was actually able to get the world to activate because he used the field spell that lets you activate the ability without the twin cost. So I had to skip my turn, and he just, I think he called it the world OTK, and so I lost to that, and that was kind of funny because I was just like, wow, I'm seeing this right now happen before my eyes. After him, I played against another player who, gosh, I'm trying to think what deck he was running. The only thing I can really remember about his deck was that he was ending his board with the Math Mech Synchro, with 3000 attack and cannot be targeted by the card effects or anything like that unless it's a Math Mech effect. That one was pretty rough. The only way I could get past that was with Avramax, but he Nibiru'd me. And then in the second game, I went first, built my board, and then he Nibiru'd me a second time. But I couldn't go into Apollosa. I checked. There was no way. Even if I didn't use Mirage Stalio's effect, I couldn't have gone into Apollosa. So it is what it is. But that really hurt. But it is what it is. There was one game where I did get hit by a Nibiru, and I was able to kind of recover, but still lost. I think that was against the World OTK player. So that's pretty much the things that I recounted. Things that I did learn. I need to imperm Electromite. I wasn't doing that first game because I had Infinite Impermanence in my hand. The moment he got Electromite out in that first game, I should have impermed that. That was against the Endymion Pendulum player. Unfortunately, Impermanence never came up when I played against the Zephyr Pendulum player. One interesting thing that I learned, I'm pretty sure most of y'all probably already know, but it was something that I picked up. With Mirage Stalio, if I don't start off with Gazelle in my hand, but I have, the other things I needed, Bufferlo, Foxy, Spinny, for example, I can use Stalio's effect, and instead of going into Jaguar like I usually do on autopilot, just kick the Gazelle. Get the Gazelle out, and then put Rage or Roar into the graveyard, and go from there. Because you're going to go into Sunlight Wolf, you're going to be able to get that trap back. Let's say you already have Rage or Roar in there. Gazelle will kick in the other one with Roar's effect, Granted, you're gonna banish it after you use it, but you know it'll set itself automatically. So that's something that I learned that I could do. So that's one thing that I'm a little happy with myself about. You know, everything's a learning experience. The reason how I learned was I went up against the World OTK player, and I had Stalio out. I was like, all right, I'm gonna use Stalio's effect, and he was just like, yep. And then you're gonna summon like the best card in the deck, and it didn't really process in my mind, so I'm just going through my deck, because, again, I'm going on autopilot. I get out Jack Jaguar, I put it down, and then there was a moment of silence, and then I said, shit. Like, and usually when I'm playing, I don't want to talk too much about what I should or shouldn't have done while playing, because, you know, you don't want to give out too much information when playing a card game. But after the game was over, I did tell him, I was like, yeah, I realized what I should have done. I should have put in Gazelle and then used that. And he was like, yeah, man, I didn't know why you didn't do it. But, you know, it's all a learning experience. And it's frustrating. It's very frustrating losing a lot, but you can't learn unless you lose. It does get frustrating when you kind of get gaslit. That sucked. I didn't lose sleep over it, but it definitely did frustrate me a bit. I was just kicking myself so much because of that. Trying to think what else. I'm just kind of stumbling for time here. But, yeah, I'm glad that there are people out there that you can ask questions and you can get some feedback, and you know, they'll be more than happy to tell you, you know, what you probably should target. There are a few that have, you know, you can kind of tell they don't want to give too much out. But one thing I did like about the shop over in New Braunfels is the community seems really chill there. Almost no one there was playing meta. A lot of people were playing very weird and, you know, rogue decks. So that was pretty neat. And they were all real nice and chill people there. It's not too far away because it's also on the outskirts of that small town, so if time permits, I'm definitely more than willing to go back and check them out. As for what changes I would make, someone suggested to add Solemn Strike, and the suggestion was to remove 2 DD Crow to make room for the Solemn Strike. I do think that this deck probably has way too many hand traps in it. Solemn Strike could probably help. Judgment, I think, might also be a nice choice as well. Maybe I could just put DD Crow into the side as well. We'll just have to see. I think the third will... I think I could probably remove that too. I'm not fully certain, so that's like 3 cards that I could probably make space for. Otherwise, I think the extra deck is pretty decent. I know Thanos Dragon is another card that's used in Salamangreat. I don't have one. Used to, but I traded it towards the Apollosa. Because I just couldn't afford another set. But, I mean, maybe I might pick up Thanos Dragon. But I think that's pretty much going to do it for this video. I am considering possibly making this like a mini-series. You know, the more I play, maybe the more things that I learn. Probably talk about just kind of like how this video went. I'm kind of debating on it, but I thought maybe this might be a good idea. Either for those who are also learning the game, or maybe if there are people out there who, you know, maybe want to see how others are viewing the game when they learn it. Because I do know that one problem with Yu-Gi-Oh! In trying to get new players is that it's a very intimidating game. Some of my personal friends, they kind of like it for the nostalgia, but when they see the pendulums and link monsters and Xyz, they kind of get very like, you know, what the fuck is this shit? And this is kind of, you know, this looks busted and everything. And but it's a fun game. I've had quite a lot of fun playing it and, you know, trying to follow it. But yeah, I don't know. Of course, like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. because again, I might make more videos of these. Any feedback as well would be greatly appreciated. I'm going to try to see if I can share this on some of the Discord servers that I'm on. Yeah, thanks for watching.